Okay, I was just trying to send him this, but I will see if I need it if we want to get started.
Eric, tonight, can you call roll call individually, and can everybody make sure that they answer? We just have so many people on the call, it's hard for me to keep track of.
Right. Okay, yeah, we'll do. So let's take it from the top. We'll start the meeting with call to order. So Eric Neifel, I'm here. John Clifford.
Here.
Brian.
Here.
Sarah.
Here.
Joy.
Here.
Well, and Steve.
Yes, here, not there.
Excellent. So we have all of our members here. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I have no adjustments to the agenda. I don't know if Kristen had any, but we can adjust as necessary in that case. But let's go ahead and jump on the minutes from last meeting. Anybody have any comments or questions about those minutes?
Not at all. The only question I had was the Kelsey, when you sent the YMCA attachment, was for the last meeting, wasn't it?
Correct.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if I had to read it or not, but I thought that was for our last meeting.
Yeah,
okay.
We went over just a summarized version of that, and then the attachment was the full version.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Cool. Does somebody want to vote to approve the minutes as noted then, or as they are?
I'll go ahead. I'll approve the meeting notes from our last meeting, which was August 3rd of 2020.
Second.
All right, we got a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Cool, we got a digital hand raised from Sarah, so no opposed. Unless you were waiting till my asking if you were opposed to raise the hand.
Nope, just slow on my keyboard.
Cool, so, all right, minutes have passed. Let's see here. Did we receive any citizen comments online? Nothing? Okay. So we'll move on to Cedar Creek Trail update with Jason.
How's everybody doing there? I'm sharing my screen, so hopefully you can see it soon. You guys seeing that there?
Yep, we see it now.
Yep.
Black screen with the cursor going back and forth?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, I'm just brief update on the Cedar Creek Trail project. There's a ton going on, probably more than ever before on the project. And I would love to come back to the next meeting, and it should all be wrapped up by then. So whether we meet in early October or we meet in November, we should have everything tied up in a bow. So I'll try to keep this one short and sweet and answer questions at the end. Just cover page there. So purpose of today's presentation, just discuss the status of the right-of-way acquisition. We had 5 case files that we were working on. Discuss the work completed since the last Parks Board meeting. Discuss the remaining work to be completed to turn on the construction funding. I got some reverb there. Is that?
I think you're okay.
All right. And then I'll just briefly discuss the schedule and budget because I'm still waiting for some information there, and I don't want to speculate on anything, but I don't have any bad news as far as schedule and budget at this point. Properties, right-of-way acquisitions. At the last meeting, again, 5 case files, we were really worried about having to go to eminent domain proceedings with the Glen Eagle Village condos, and I'm happy to report that they have accepted our final settlement offer. So that's huge for the project. We're issuing our payment to them this week, and we're going to record the easement documents at the county. And then we have to send those via certified mail and then get that documents over to ODOT and FHWA to clear the project. So once we get that cleared, the city is eligible for an 89% reimbursement because we paid out of pocket to settle those to keep things moving along. So that's another good thing. It's just that will affect our cash flow and the project budget at some point. So we'll work through that with our finance folks. So this closing bullet is, in essence, we've wrapped up the right-of-way acquisition. So that's a huge milestone for the project. Work tasks completed or issues resolved since the last Parks Board meeting. Okay, we settled all the right-of-way case files. I just wanted to keep hitting home on that. We received another huge milestone here was received nationwide 401. Oh wait, nationwide 401 water quality certification approval from the Oregon DEQ, which is also basically they're forwarding on authorization from the United States Army Corps of Engineers to proceed with the project. So that's huge. It's not all of that permit, it's half of it. We submitted our fish passage plan and permit to the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. I don't expect any issues with that. We've completed our 100% plan review. One of the issues we were having last time is that ODOT required some additional geotechnical probes for a portion of the project that they were declaring a fish passage. So we went out and got our probes, and we're going to now be putting kind of a little bridge culvert over what many of us may think is a ditch once we go for a walk on this. But that was an issue last time, and we're working through it, and I don't expect any issues there. Final bullet item is we received, this might sound like it's late in the project, but during our 100% review, the State Historic Preservation Office, I didn't put office there on that word there, but they wanted us to get some additional probes out in the field for their state archaeologists wanted that. So we had to get clearance permits and go out and dig a couple of holes, and we got that done last week. So we believe that we can get that information submitted within the next 2 weeks, so it shouldn't present any issues. And this will be going into my lessons learned for the project. Actually, these two items is to have a second round of geotechnical investigation in your project budget and have a second round of archaeological, because those were unforeseen issues that came up, like, you know, during the final review. I know it was because the project went on forever, but still, if we would have just had another field visit in those items, it wouldn't have been a big of an issue. So remaining work to be completed in the next 2 to 3 weeks. This is a lot of stuff that I got to be getting closed out here, but we got to get those right-of-way documents submitted to ODOT, and that's for the FHWA clearance. I don't expect any issues there. We got to submit that amended archaeological study. We have to pay our CWS vegetated corridor, basically fee in lieu of, this week. It's about 70,000 bucks, and then CWS will give us their erosion control permit. And this is the big sum, waiting on a final cost estimate from the engineer, because we need to, make sure we have enough money to proceed with construction. And so far, it sounds like we're still in line with the federal funding that we were given in the matching funds. So that's the great news I hope to give you at your next Parks Board meeting, is that we are still on with the budget that is now almost 9 years old. I need to obtain the executed copies of our bird permits, as I'm calling them. We do have an APHIS, which is a USDA permit to remove birds and wildlife if that's an issue, which is tied to a Migratory Bird Treaty Act permit that the county holds, because I'm having problems tracking down the person at the county that gives me the actual executed permit. So that's why I put that on here. It's no issues expected there, but I just wanted to get it on my presentation today. And then the other half of that DEQ, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, is Oregon DSL, and that's the Joint Fill Removal Permit. This is the huge one that you need for clearance to start the project. And basically, this is at DSL. It's on the shelf. It's been reviewed, and they're just waiting for all of these other items to be pushed through for them to issue their permit. So I don't expect any issues. It's just more of a procedural thing of pushing everything through in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And once all those items are in, this ODOT gives us confirmation that our project complies with, basically they call it the FAP program manual. So they review that, and once they determine that it's good to go, we are turned on for the construction phase. And right now, all that information is due in 2 weeks. It sounds like a short period. I think we might be able to make it, but if not, we can't put our bridge structure in until next in-stream work window. So there was about 30 days of wiggle room in our schedule to work that out. So I'm hoping we can, here's my cursor, hit this deadline. If we don't, I have a backup plan to get us through without impacting the tail end of the project. So I'm already trying to get into the construction mode. What if bids come in high? Sort of a mind frames here. Schedule and budget, no alarms, but in flux is what I'm saying. Final engineer's cost estimate, that's due here Wednesday. We're scheduled to have everything done on the 28th of this month, and that equals to a bid opening date of November 19th. And if we were to miss that, there's another date after that that we would slide into without affecting the in-stream work window. So these are the items I want to follow up at the next meeting with you, and then that will have our project and the budgets will be galvanized basically in our budget. So I'm hoping to come to you guys at your next meeting and just give you the biggest smile on my face ever. I'll turn my video on for that, and then go from there, and we'll get this thing built. So I do have any slides. If you have questions, I can answer them with this map here. If you want to look at we've looked at this project's life cycle before. I was just putting in the dates that we have programmed to deliver as of now, which is right around the corner. That's kind of the exhibit we looked at before that shows when you vegetation, and it's looking like we're going to remove vegetation here in December. So we should be good to go there, and we can't set our bridge structure until we get into July 15th work window here. So it's getting tight, but it's looking like, you know, the project's going to be, I don't want to jinx us. It's going good. Questions, answer, period. Any questions?
I just have one here. So when it goes out for submittal, is this whole project under one contract with one contractor, or are there going to be subcontractors that are going to be used under the general contractor, or are we having separate bids for different parts of the project?
It'll be just one general contractor, and I don't know exactly how. Sometimes the general contract, they have to do like at least half of the work themselves. There's a certain percentage for federal funding for them to qualify to bid on the project. I don't know exactly what it is, but the general contractor has to do a certain percentage of the work, and then they'll sub out things like landscaping or probably the bridge structure, or if there were any, you know, concrete flat work would get subbed out. But it's just like any of our roadway projects, we have to follow the same rules, and that's kind of the hard part about using the FHWA funds is we basically have to treat the whole thing like a road project. So that's how it gets delivered.
Okay, thank you.
So Jason, I have a question. Assuming that we are able to open bids on November 19th, when do you anticipate work starting? I know we can't do some of the in-stream corridor work until summer, but when will some of the other work actually be scheduled to start approximately?
In January, I think even if we did bid it in November, I don't see the contractor really wanting to get out there in December and do much, just because it's not a 10-month long project. They're going to back it off of that July 15th date that they can set the bridge. So I think that my guess is they're going to be out there right at the new year, cutting down vegetation and moving from there, even if they open the bids on the 19th of November.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If no other questions, I will come back with a good news presentation for you, and then we'll have the budget squared away. That's kind of the part I'm interested in now, is to see how the engineer's estimate comes back. So prepare for a 10 to 15 minute presentation next month, and I can give that either at the October or the November meeting. I don't think it makes any difference on my end. And thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you.
Take care.
Jason.
Yeah. All right, Kristen, you can take over from here with the Parks Master Plan.
Yes, so we actually have Lauren with us this evening, Lauren Schmidt from MIG, and she is going to walk us through where we are with the Parks Master Plan. I'm hoping that everybody had a chance to actually pick up a draft. We decided it was such a large document, it's difficult to go through and read online. So we decided, and difficult to email. So we did decide to print that out, and we're just going to walk through that, and I'll hand it over to Lauren.
Great, thank you. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully that goes well, because I don't use Teams too often.
We can see it.
All right. Well, folks, we're having it's also, pretty interesting when we started this out, and the last time I saw all of you on your own, it was, before we were meeting like this, but we're happy. And so here we are 6 months later. And, you're still building trails and still building your parks. So we're adapting. So just I'm going to be pretty high level, walking you through the orientation to the plan, and then ready for any kinds of questions or comments you might have. So just a reminder about the process. We've been at this for a bit over a year. We got a little down with COVID, but with a huge engagement push that the first round of that ended up last October, and then we touched base back again with the community in January, and we're able to do in-person as well as online stuff. We looked at the planning context, we looked at the state of Sherwood today. All of that went into the needs assessment, and then that led to the recommendations and the look at funding, and then through the summer, we've been developing the plan document that you all now have a hard copy of. So just a reminder that, we've been keeping it all the way through that you developed as a community, and in particular, the goal that's part of that vision, the goals around healthy and valued ecosystems. And so that was kind of our touchstone from the get-go. As I mentioned, the public engagement, there's a lot. Some pretty document itself. So there's an executive summary. That's one of the things that Kristen and Erica mentioned was so important in the last plan, that it be a standalone piece, that it include the project list. And so hopefully you got a chance to look through that and see if that will be as helpful to you as the last one. And then there's 5 chapters: the introduction, the needs and opportunities, the principles, strategies, and actions. So that's kind of the policy framework piece of the plan. Chapter 4 is recommended improvements. So that's the projects piece. And then 5 is the implementation chapter. And there are some supporting appendices. And then there's also some standalone documentation of the public engagement. And so the appendices, there's the planning documents that contributed, that are documented there, the inventory as it stood during the course of this process. And, as we heard tonight, you're constantly tinkering and improving your park system. So that'll probably change, by the time you adopt this even. The earlier document, the state of Sherwood Parks and Recreation, that's kind of your existing condition statement. 2 pieces that will be tools for you going forward: the field house analysis and the senior center analysis. Those contributed to the recommendations that are in the plan, and then the needs assessment. So let's dive into the principles, strategies, and actions. So the park system principles, these are a tool to, as you think about projects and how you move forward with your decision making, these kind of articulate the vision. And this came out of the things we were hearing from the community about what they appreciate about being playful in the park system, healthy, that it be friendly, your arts identity, the green aspect of the way you do things, and resiliency. And also the fact that you do things in collaboration, you achieve through partnerships internally in your city and also with external partners. And so those principles provide that overarching guidance. And then there are 8 strategies. And for each of those strategies, there are a series of objectives. Those are the policy statements that come under each of those. And then a component of this chapter that will be pretty important, both for planning new development and for parks renovations, are the park development guidelines. These are organized by the park classification, so by community parks, neighborhood parks, pocket parks, special use sites, and natural areas. And they're structured to talk about the intent of each classification, the size and access guidelines, the recommended resources, so kind of the minimum set of things each park of that type should have, some additional resources that could be considered, the types of structures that are compatible, and then things that are incompatible that might detract from the primary intent. And so they're set up in these pages that will be reference sheets going forward that can be used also by your planning department. So that's the intent of those. That's a piece you didn't have in the last plan that we heard would be important as you consider some of these new concept areas. So the recommended improvements chapter is organized into 5 sections. Talks about your existing parks, new parks and trails, your existing indoor recreation facilities, new recreation facilities, and then there's a piece that is called recreation facility considerations. And so these are for some new facilities that we heard a lot of interest in that you may not necessarily have a site for right now. And so there's considerations about how to fit those into the park system. So again, another tool moving forward. So the first piece of this, the existing parks, includes a map. Recommended improvements are tiered into 3 tiers. And it steps through. For your new parks and trails, there's a few bigger moves there. This Brookman area parks have been planned out and located really well. And so the plan recommends securing those, and then as you move forward, create a distinct identity for each so that they all work together as a park sequence in that area. Revisiting, there's some guidance around revisiting the parks provision recommended in the Sherwood West concept plan area, which is something that will be going on here in the next year. That there's funding to do that now, and there's some things that should be considered when looking at the parks in that area. The Tonkin employment area, the Ice Age Tonkin Trail will serve park needs in that area. And then if there's any future concept plans or some policy guidance around using the PRMP to help site parks in the future. Trails was a huge interest to your community. People are pretty excited about the trail that we just heard about, and you've got a great trails plan. So this plan recommends building out that network that you've planned in the transportation system plan. And, if there are opportunities to add routes, this supports doing that. Your existing indoor facilities, you have a nice array of those. The Sherwood Center for the Arts is a beautiful facility. So this plan is really recommending just keeping that asset fresh and, ready for use. The Sherwood Family YMCA, you own that building, and it recommends supporting the YMCA's efforts to fundraise and expand. Your other two facilities, the Marjorie Stewart Senior Community Center, this is a kind of bigger project to renovate and expand that, keeping in mind you want to sustain the programming that you already have there and not compete with other facilities. And then the field house, there's a long-term vision for replacement at another site. And then once a new field house is up and running, then the field house site could be repurposed for another use. So the field house replacement, you made great use out of the facility that you modified for your current field house. It's very popular, and there's a huge demand. So the replacement, and there is in one of those appendices, it discusses field house trends in a bit more detail, but at minimum, you'd want 2 fields with storage, a meeting room, some team rooms, and to design it so multiple age groups and sports could be accommodated. And ideally, if you could get a site to co-locate it with an outdoor field complex, that's a model that works very well. Other new recreation facilities, securing a site for a sport field complex that's focused on soccer, lacrosse, rectangular fields, a universally accessible destination play area. And in terms of the swimming pool, swimming is very, very popular. The YMCA pool expansion is the best option for Sherwood due to the high operating cost of swimming pools and Sherwood's small market size. So the guidance for recreation facilities within the plan, the pump track bike skills course is dog parks, splash pads, paved sport courts, and then enhanced play experiences. And this final one is really about how you diversify your play areas. You've got some really interesting ones. People really appreciate that about your park system, and this gives some options to take it up another notch. And so those pages look like this. There's, they include details about siting and location, and they include images to give some ideas. So and then the project list correlates to all of those projects, and that is found in the executive summary, as I mentioned in the beginning, and that is kind of the shorthand version of Chapter 4. So Chapter 5 is the implementation chapter, and it addresses funding, capital projects, prioritization, and the action plan. I'm going to hop right to the action plan. The funding piece talks about your existing funding sources and how you continue to be the great financial stewards that you are. The prioritization criteria we talked about this previously, and what is now in the plan is the application of those criteria, and actions and projects from the plan are put into a time frame with references to the plan document. And the intent here is this can be a tracking tool that can be adjusted, that you as a board can reapply the criteria if conditions change or a new opportunity comes up, and you can rejigger that going forward periodically. So with this draft, after your feedback and recommendation, we have other reviewers. We have the Planning Commission work session coming up later this month. The Planning Commission will have a public hearing right now that's scheduled for mid-October, and then City Council review and adoption would be scheduled for early November. And so with that, I will stop screen sharing, and once I figure out how to do that, and then open it up to any kind of questions, comments, wherever which board would like to take it.
I have one starting question, and could you, I know this is part of the Sherwood Comprehensive Plan. Can you give us a little more detail on how does this come first or second with the comprehensive plan?
Lauren, if I can touch base, Erica is on the line. So Erica, do you want to talk about how this all blends together?
Sure, I certainly can. So this is actually coming first in the comprehensive plan process in regards to park and recreation and the 2040 plan for Sherwood. And what we envision is that this plan would be adopted, and then we would go ahead and create our policies and objectives for the comp plan through the comp plan process. But this plan document would help guide us in developing those policies and objectives for the comp plan.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question, kind of a general observation as I was reading through this. It seems like there's, almost no discussion on what the trail expansion would be like, which is something that, when I sat through that session where everybody was looking at the pictures and stuff, trails seem to be something that is repeatedly been very, very high on the list of interest. So I know that you mentioned that it's tied to the transportation plan somehow, but I just want to get clarity on that, like what the plan is to address that need, since it was we got such strong feedback on wanting that. And since we are managing the Cedar Creek Trail, I'm confused about if it falls under their purview or like within the parks piece. Like it seems like it's a parks thing, so it feels like it's missing from here.
So there is really, and I'll let Erica and Kristen, if they want to also pipe in. So your transportation system plan actually has a really extensive off-street network. And when we saw all of the public feedback around trails, and you're spot on, it is one of the top priorities for the community. We went and we analyzed the trail system that you have as spelled out in the transportation system plan, and we basically could not find anything that was missing. It's a really complete network. Now, not all of it is, in the shorter term funding, but the trail that you're building right now is actually called out in that transportation system plan. And so rather than, create cross references, we really just referenced that plan. The needs assessment talks about the various elements. And so, I don't know, Erica, do you have any other thoughts on that, or any thoughts about different approaches, or how you think those two plans align?
Like you said, I think we have a really great trail network map in our TSP. I do know that this park plan does, it did an analysis of the 10-minute walk to parks in Sherwood, and it recognizes, as some areas in Sherwood that have some slight deficiencies to provide a 10-minute walk for residents to parks. And I know that this plan recognizes that fact and talks about how there's opportunity to create better linkages for that 10-minute walk analysis. But, I think when we talk about trails, we have the trails in our TSP. We do recognize that trail system map is in our TSP. We didn't necessarily want to make the plan confusing, and that's why we just really cross-referenced to the transportation planning document rather than having that map in this park plan. Does that make sense? Lauren?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, because it is a lot of times transportation system plans are a little weak on the bicycle and pedestrian component. And yours is actually one of the strongest ones I've ever seen that really addresses that off-street network, as well as the community connectors. And so some of that filling in the 10-minute gap can be accomplished with new parks. Some of that 10-minute gap can be addressed by elevating some of the projects that are recommended in the TSP, and including crossing Highway 99. That's a huge priority, and it would be a game changer for access to the park system, as well as the completion of your off-street trail network. And what we found in working, I guess, in this intersection between trails, which is it has it also has a conservation value, where there's a plan in place using the parks plan to help elevate and add another layer of priority. We found can be a really helpful way to make regional funding, because that's the other thing. You also have nice chunks of regional trail, which not all communities do. So, you're looking at, the Tonquin Trail is it's just a fantastic opportunity, as what you're doing right now. So I hope that helps to see the interplay between those things. The challenge is, if we put the trail map that's from the transportation system plan in this parks plan right now, they're going to be on a different updating cycle. And so when you update the transportation system plan, which will probably be in a couple of years, if there's any tweaks made to that map, then you end up with inconsistent reference. And that can just be problematic when it comes time to, try to negotiate easements and things like that. So we're trying to support trails and support the great planning that's already happened, and provide some ways to elevate priority without, creating confusion, I think, is what Erica nicely said.
Okay.
Could I comment some more about that whole thing, since we have planning and Kristen and the consultant and everyone there, and maybe again, this is Steve, everybody. I see I understand why there's the transportation system plan and why that is there and why the parks is separate. I understand that. But there's no, I think the other members of this board, and I think that was one of the things, is there's nobody advocating for trails. A lot of people talk about them, want them, but I think the way that it's planned or the way it exists in two different plans and whatnot, typical citizen has not read the transportation master plan, nor will they ever look at it. I'm guessing most of the people on this board have never looked at it. Um, so I don't think there's anybody pushing for these things that we would really want to have. And like the plant, that some of the trails that exist now that just dead end, that's kind of where it leads you. So I don't know how best we figure that out to make it a positive thing so that everybody's thinking on the same page and we actually get some things accomplished. Because I can tell you, I advocated a while back for, and I'll tell you, it's a long while back, for sidewalks on Sunset. And in my neighborhood, my children went to Archer Glen. I'm located next to Archer Glen Elementary. I'm located next to Snyder Park. We're just now fixing an intersection and building some sidewalks, I think. But I advocated for that to finish those when my kids were in grade school, and they've both now finished college. So, and we're almost, I mean, the street's torn up right now today. I'm hoping that we actually finish that because, and so you know, you can understand, and without going and banging on city councilors' doors or jumping up and down, and but attempting to go through channels to get things accomplished. Kids are still walking in the street versus on something that's should have been built. Well, I'm going to say certainly a decade ago. So if we could figure out how to make it work, because right now we're looking at the plan, council's going to look at a plan, we're going to approve it, and then it'll be used as a planning document and things, but there's nobody really out there advocating for trails, although we all know we want them. So enough babble on my part, but does that make sense?
So, Steve, if we expanded the section that talks a little bit about trails, it sounds like we probably just need to put a little bit more information there, not get specific about what path or trail, where they're going to exist, but what the priorities are, what we want to see in a trail, what the goals are for connectivity, and maybe share some of the feedback that we receive from the community and just make sure that we're expanding that and then tying it back to the transportation system plan. Would that address it, do you think?
I would certainly hope so. Yes, it's an effort in the right direction, and maybe the Parks Board needs to review the transportation master plan to look at that and also be involved in whenever that's updated type of thing. Because the other thing we're not involved in really is a push to budget for things and get things done other than they're on some linear path. Since we're talking about trails, they're on a linear path of somewhere, sometime in the next 20 years, something will be built. But if people push for and bring things to the forefront, things will get built faster and things will be safer and better for all of us, and we'll have things completed, more things completed, I think. So yes, that would be helpful.
Can I jump in there too? So I think those were great comments, Stephen. And so in my mind, that might be a fitting thing to include in the action plan, or is the action plan only considerate of parks and current buildings? In my mind, trails would be something we should be mindful of in our action plan. Does that sound like it should be aligned, or? Okay. Yeah, I mean, because the only thing I really see in this entire list, I mean, all the way up to the 10 plus years in my mind that relates to trails is endorse the 10-minute walk campaign, which, I mean, that's really almost more placing parks, but not really how to connect them either. So, yeah, I think making something more evident in this action plan as far as what do we do with the trails themselves? Like, are there areas we focus on more? I think, I mean, reading through what people had commented, it definitely did seem like that is a high priority among a few others. So I would expect that to be something we should be mindful of, probably even in the next few years, the 1 to 5 year plan, let alone something long term in connecting things.
Yeah, I agree. I just think everything that you guys have said is good, but I think it needs to be very apparent, like in all of the sections as you read through, like, because it did kind of hit you in the face with the feedback, and it feels like it's just missing from here. So I agree with Eric. It definitely needs to be more apparent in the action plan. I found the signage one. That's the only thing I found on there relating to the trails, but which is important too. But it just feels like it's just missing. So just overall feedback.
That's helpful. And I think Kristen and Erica and I can kind of talk about the interplay of, sort of the public works realm, but, hearing your feedback, because you're right, the community really, that was every place that we talked to the community that rose to the top. And you're feeling that's, even though you don't control as much or very much with regard to some of the trails corridors as you do, with the parks. This should be a tool to advocate for the things that are important to the community. So I think there are some ideas that you brought up, and I think, we can come up with some others. Within the strategies chapter, there are two that can provide some policy language that would help in the planning realm, which is the 10-minute walk, but there could be something added to that specifically about the sidewalk connections. Right now, the policy language is about filling the gaps, but it's not specific that includes the pedestrian access and the example that you gave of the sidewalks being completed. And then there is one that specifically deals with the network of connected trails. And so that is maybe a good base, but maybe we can hang more on that in the way that Kristen described, and then also flesh out the new parks and trails section in chapter 4 in a way that works with the plan, the transportation system plan.
I had a couple other things too. One was just like a couple typos on a page, just as a note. But so page 4 of the executive summary, there was the Rudy Olson gas pump park. In the additional notes, it's Rude with E instead of a Y, Rude Olson gas pump park. So there's just that little one, and at the bottom of the page, 15,000 budgeted per year for 10 years for the natural area management. So just a couple little things there. And then others were just little format thing. Page 22, which is in chapter 2, needs and opportunities. There's a big green box, and there was a bullet that was really hard to read because it's gray, but in the green box.
In the green box.
Yeah, it's like as discussed in the section indoor
Yeah.
facility, that first bullet. Cool. And then one last thing, I just had a question. In chapter 4, page 47 and 48, we had the approach to improving existing parks. And you had a slide in your presentation that kind of followed the same thing, but I had a hard time kind of matching up. We had the 3 categories: landscape conversion, enhancement, and major enhancement. And then we broke those into 3 tiers of priorities, 1, 2, and 3. And then it seemed like from there on out, we were breaking everything into 3 tiers, but I didn't see much comment as to the categories.
Yeah.
So I just was trying to figure out how those categories play a role within those tiers, or how those are interconnected, I guess.
Sure. The categories, you'll see those in the executive summary, as well as on that first map that we referenced in chapter 4. And so, yeah, the landscape conversion, is a treatment, is actually came up in places, and we have some opportunity to the landscapes in your parks to things like low-mow turf, and to naturescaping, and in certain locations. And there's a cost associated with that, and a cost assumption. And there's a number of parks that can do. And then enhancements, there's different scales of those. There's a enhancement, and then a major enhancement is something that's either a higher cost item, or it's affecting a lot of the parks. And so the map shows where those are located, and then within that project list that's in the executive summary, you can see which apply to which park. And then the tiering is really about relating back to some of the high need or low hanging fruit areas. And so that's why Cannery Square is kind of a low hanging fruit to implement that one, and Murdoch Park and Pioneer Park of your existing parks, those would do more for meeting some of the needs that people express. And then the other tiering was, kind of the same, like how many people could it affect? And so the third tier are those projects that are important projects, but they're affecting a smaller site or a smaller population, or in the case of like the skate park, it's something that you just built. And so you really don't need to do anything to it, just over time, sustain it as an asset. So that's how that tiering worked, to just connect back to the needs assessment.
Okay, I think that makes a lot more sense now. Maybe just one simple thing, like I'm a kind of a visual thinker and learner, so I think if in each of those parks, like from pages 49 through whatever it is, 50 something, or maybe even 60 something with Veterans Park, and if we just have a little, maybe the icon for things that have been identified in those parks, or even just a note of, Cannery Square, for example, like we just have either the symbol for an enhancement, or just something noticed like we recommended an enhancement here, or for Murdoch Park, where we have a potential enhancement and a landscape conversion. Just something to note that those are categories for park improvements that we've identified. Just at least for my mindset, at least it makes it a little more clear on the objective within each of those.
Sure, that's an easy add. So we would take those icons that are on the map and make them sure, like next to Cannery Square, it would get its icon as well as words, just as a reminder. And then you don't have to read all the words, and you have a nice little shortcut. Ooh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it offers a nice summary, at least in my brain, of, oh, here's what I'm reading in all of these notes combined. So, but cool. That's all I had.
I have one more question about prioritization. So this action plan that's at the end, that seems like that's what this is a list of, is the recommended prioritization? Or is that something that's going to be discussed further with the board, or, you know, to get additional kind of thoughts on?
Well, I think this is your opportunity to give your thoughts on that right now. I mean, I can tell you what's in here right now is the action plan that we've developed on the MIG end, and that Kristen and Erica have reviewed, but there hasn't been much other feedback. You know, if you look at the criteria, which, you know, have had review, the idea is to get a mix of, you know, bigger projects and smaller projects, so that you're not never making, you know, you want to have a mix so that you don't, you know, just do all the quick things right away, that you think about the staff time that you have, and that to do big projects, you know, something like the Tonkin Trail, you have to start doing little things now. So those criteria are supposed to get, you know, through a mix. And this action plan is supposed to also try to connect up the project piece with the strategies and actions that are in chapter 3. So both of them, that's why the reference is there, to connect both of those chapters. And then in terms of, you know, what you pick off in these timeframes, would love to hear your feedback around that.
Well, just one thing, and maybe you can tell me if I'm missing it, but I don't see the, you know, it's talked about throughout the aquatic center and the expansion of the YMCA or whatnot, but I just didn't see that on the action plan list. Is that something that's managed separately? Or, I mean, because that's, again, I feel like trails and the aquatics things were two very big themes that we had throughout the feedback session. And it just seemed like they weren't, you know, as apparent as I would expect in this.
So the aquatics piece, because the YMCA is kind of the operator of the facility that you own, you know, there's kind of an ongoing management of that relationship. And so this action plan right now is not really talking about that ongoing stewardship. There isn't really, you know, a new action around that. At least that was kind of the thinking in putting this together. And I kind of turned to Kristen to see if I've kind of captured that right, or if you have different thoughts at this point.
I thought they had a plan. I mean, didn't we look through a plan already?
There was a concept plan that was developed in the last year, that, and quite honestly, the concept plan came back to be quite a bit more expensive than we felt like the community And the feedback that we were receiving was that it wasn't something that the community would necessarily support in the form of a bond right now. That's one of the things that we talked about doing. But the construction costs that we were looking at was, in the range of 25 to 45 million dollars, which seemed to be above and beyond. So honestly, we were just at the end of those conversations and had received the cost estimates back, and we're trying to decide, okay, now what are we going to do? And that's about when the pandemic hit. And we've still been talking to the YMCA, but they've also been trying to evaluate how they want to move forward. Right now, obviously, we own the building and we have an operating agreement with them. And I believe we have about 3 or 4 more years left on that operating agreement. So there's still a lot of opportunities. I think we're going to have to take a look at the plan again and try to figure out if there is going to be an expansion and if that's something that the community supports. What's that dollar amount? We may not be able to do everything that we were hoping that we could do there. So it's going to have to be looked at again based on the feedback that we received. So what we were trying to do here is is address it and recognize that there was some desire to build a separate pool, separate from the YMCA. And what we're trying to do here is say, that's not going to work. We're too small of a community to support 2 pools. So if there is going to be an expansion of aquatics, it does need to happen at that site. And that's where we need to pursue any sort of pool development.
Sure, yeah, and I think that argument made a lot of sense as I was reading through it. It just seems like it's missing from our action plan.
Yeah, and there may be a few things that we need to add in there, even if it's because I could see that, just like we have in here renegotiating the agreement with the school district. We all know that that's something that's been up in the air and is changing right now. And it may be that we need to be more specific about establishing the long-term partnership with the YMCA and establishing where that's going. And that, of course, will relate to aquatics, but that might be a good place to do that because that's going to come up in that 1 to 5 years.
Okay.
Oops, you're muted, Eric.
Oh, sorry. I just said, Brian, you had a hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Eric. We have a number of things there that I wanted to touch on. I put a few comments on the chat on the side. I think Lauren did talk about the how the priorities went into the 3 tiers. So thanks for doing that. I just wanted to mention that we talked about the trails earlier and how that's a big ask from the community. But as we've seen, Eric and John and I and Kristen, we've seen how long it has taken to do the one section of trail from Stella Olson Park to 99. It's been years and years. So it's realistic that the trail system should be a part of the transportation plan, as Erica has said. And that's kind of where it fits, because I know people want off-street trails, but if it's going to take 5 or 10 years to build even a couple mile stretch of trail, we need to have things that are integrated with existing roads, existing sidewalks. So as Steve was saying, we need to accelerate that and make existing roads more safe for people to bike or walk. I think that's what we should be focusing on. And my last comment there was, it sounds from what Lauren was saying that we should maybe have a Parks Board working session to kind of come up with our list of priorities coming out of this master plan that they've developed, and kind of digest it and come up with the list of priorities that we would recommend to the board. Kristen, is that kind of what you were thinking? It sounds to me like that's where we should be moving.
I think that once we get through the master plan process, I mean, again, this is looking much higher, from a much higher level. So once we get through this process, we will once again start doing our yearly priority list, which kind of changed every year depending on funding and opportunities. But we'll get back into the cycle of every January saying, what is it that we want to accomplish this year? What are the projects that we want to focus on? And there may be 5, 6, 7 things on the list, and we may be able to accomplish a few of them each year, but every year we'll keep reevaluating that. So that's when we'll get into the more specifics of saying, okay, within the goals for the first 5 years, it doesn't say where we're going to put bike parking or necessarily what improvements are going to be made at specific parks. So we'll really dive into that, and that's where we'll take a look at prioritizing specific projects. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is kind of the roadmap, and then we got to figure out what we need to do and what we need to get in place to get to our destination.
Right.
So you're kind of talking, Kristen, about that annual work plan process that you do in the board retreat each year, and how this then feeds into that.
Yes.
I just want one more question too. So in the action plan, we have those 6 different criteria. It didn't look to me like there's any hierarchy in those criteria. Is that right? Those are just 6 general criteria categories. Okay.
They are. And some projects may achieve more than one of those, but they're intended to allow you to evaluate, all the things that you could do, and then to put them into that sequence. So as I mentioned, you've got quick wins, but if you only do quick wins in your first 5-year window, you won't make any progress on other items. Some of them, like alignment with other projects, in some cases that is great because it opens you up to other types of funding, but sometimes, that's not going to happen. One that the limited time opportunity, that's one that can really drive the timing of when you might do something. So if there is a funding source, or you have a willing seller or something like that, over the life of this plan, that might actually change your priority level of a particular project. And that particular criterion is, really to give you a way that you can change the priority of something. If something changes, back, a few years ago, when state parks really started prioritizing through the grants that they give out, nature play. I mean, my goodness, to be the first one in on that, you would want to prioritize that project. So that's one example. Or right now, your metro local share funding, there's certain projects that really fit that, and that's a nice, chunk of change. Yeah, and then the taking care of what we have and advancing major projects are, I think self-explanatory. And then provide the balanced investment. So that's something that really connects back to what we heard from the community. They don't want, all sports fields or all trails or all play areas. They really like the diversity of what you offer. For a community of your size, you have a really impressive park system with a lot of very nice facilities and, a kind of core downtown, and people like that you've spent money on different things and provided different assets. So that's a way to make sure you calibrate that to keep, well, if you do a bunch of trails projects, then you would want to, tweak the investment a little bit. So you're doing something maybe that was a little more active as well. So that's how they would work, or that's the intent, and the questions are, to help apply them.
Thank you. John, you got a hand up?
I do, yes. I have a couple questions here, so hopefully they'll be quick. The first one is under the community parks guidelines. The minimum developable park would be 10 acres. Is that correct under what's listed in the master plan?
Just give me a sec as I scroll back.
Yeah, we have it, for us, it's page 40.
Going backwards from the, what's that?
It's under, let's see.
Backwards. Neighborhood community, yes. The minimum developable acreage. So your community parks, like if you look at Stella Olson, for example, you've got more area, but some of that is in wetlands. So the idea is just, you want a nice chunk of land that you can actually develop facilities on. So it's minimum developable acreage of 10 acres.
Yeah. So, so like you were mentioning Stella Olson. So Stella Olson currently is the only park we have in Sherwood that is over 10 acres, which you have indicated as 22 acres. And you did mention some of that is already in wetland. But then the park that has the most facilities and playgrounds and most recreational is Snyder Park, and that's only 3.36 acres. So why would we need 10 acres? That on page, let's see, you have it on page under recommended improvements. You have Snyder Park as 3.3 acres.
That's because Snyder Park is also about 20 acres.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Eagle eyes.
Yeah. All right. I was just wondering because I was thinking maybe we could, fit that much on a smaller acreage, but okay. Another question is regarding the improvements, projected improvements for Pioneer Park. It is indicating about enhance the entrance off of Roy Rogers. Now we are in the process of, at least the city of Sherwood is going to be redeveloping that whole transportation area. So I don't know, I haven't seen the actual plans for what's going to happen there, but that whole Roy Rogers is going to be torn up and redeveloped into additional lanes. So I don't know if that's going to be affecting the entrance off of Roy Rogers onto the Pioneer Park. I don't know if that's something we need to consider or not, or maybe it's just a comment I made.
Maybe that's an opportunity to have another project fund pedestrian access.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So another thing I have here is I just need to clarify. It's on page 52 under the Langer Park. Under Tier 2 Langer Park. I was a little confused under item 6 under develop a walking running loop.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what it's talking about an additional sidewalk, but it also, at the end, it says, and the possible addition of a natural surface path adjacent to the paved sidewalk. So is that talking about the same sidewalk, or is that an additional sidewalk to the proposed sidewalk?
Um, so we're, so a couple things, and then we can talk about how to maybe clarify this. So one of the things that came up is how much people really like loop trail opportunities and like to be able to walk in loops within your, or using the park as part of that, and also run in loops. And so the natural surface path piece is about having kind of a running path next to the sidewalk in some places at Langer Park. And so Langer Park is also the only park that serves a pretty large neighborhood. And, you know, some of your other sites, you know, there might be another park nearby if it's a small park, but Langer, when you look at that kind of watershed map, it's kind of the only thing going in that part of town. And there's, you know, there's a play area there, and there's some lawn and a few other facilities. So this walking path idea and this loop path is one that seems like a pretty easy lift in a park that people really count on. And so the idea is to use some of the paths that are already within that park, and they are next to the street for the most part, but then to develop it so it'll loop through the park. And so you can have, you know, your kid on a tricycle, or walk your stroller, or walk your dog, or potentially run within that park and be able to get a measured distance. So that's what that's intending to recommend.
Yeah, okay. No, I like that idea. I was just a little confused because I wasn't sure if it's talking about 2 additional sidewalks, a concrete sidewalk along with a natural or natural surface sidewalk. So, yeah, okay. Another question I have is under page 85, under the action plan.
All right. Lay it on me.
All right, so you have here, you basically indicated a sentence twice. The sentence says, if you read it down, and then it says the action plan is intended to be dynamic, updated periodically to reflect changing circumstances and opportunities. You mentioned that also at the bottom of the page, or be just above the photo. I don't know if that was intended or not.
No, that's a layout. That's a layout issue. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I had some other things here. Oh, under the is the comprehensive plan is the 2040 plans. That's correct.
That is correct.
2040. Okay. Yep. So on page 29, I believe. And again, this is just clarification. Under A6 on page 29, you have the 10-minute walk as a 2050.
That's just Chris's error. I caught that too.
Okay. All right. Let's see what else I have here.
Oh, well, actually, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think some of the other questions I had, I think were already answered. So I'm good to go on that. Thank you very much for clarifying those. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Lauren while we have her?
I just wanted to say, if you think of something after we're through here, or if you're going through your notes and realize that we did not cover something, please feel free to shoot me an email. I really appreciate everybody's feedback and taking the time to go through all of this. It's very helpful. So thank you very much. And I know there's some questions here I see in the chat, Brian, about the acreage, and we'll make sure to take a look at that, and that's correct for all of the parks.
All right. Well, should we move on to the tree removal request?
Sounds good, unless there's any more questions.
I'm good.
Lauren?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lauren, for your time
Thank
today.
you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. And we will work with Kristen and Erica to bring some of this feedback in.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Kelsey emailed out the tree removal requests that we have for September. They are both off of Pinehurst. Did everybody receive those? There's also
Yes, I did. Yep, I got him.
okay. There's also a link in the group chat if you need to open up the PowerPoint. I could possibly figure out how to share my screen, but that might take longer than it will for us to go through this. So there's at 22840 on Pinehurst, there's 2 large cottonwoods that need to be removed. And those will be replaced this fall, not necessarily planted in the exact area, but close by. And then again at 22890 on Pinehurst, there is 6 cottonwood trees that are causing damage to the adjacent property and to a city access road. So once again, those will be replanted and put nearby in an appropriate place with an appropriate species of tree. And then the last slide on the PowerPoint just shows the exact location of those tree removals. Did anybody have any questions about those?
I don't. I'm just to verify that since I do live in Woodhaven, I do acknowledge that there are quite a few situations like that. So I can understand why the need for the removal of those cottonwoods. It's an ongoing thing in our
Yes.
neighborhood. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Kristen, do you know what kind of trees they will be replaced with?
I do not know for sure. They will take a look at the approved tree list and see what they think will do well in the area and not cause future problems, and plant something in its place.
Yeah, I don't, Steve here, I don't have any questions. I do have, of course, my comment about this all the time. But I managed to speak with Trey, who's the city staff person who brings these to us probably once a month. We manage to meet each other somewhere and have a pretty good conversation. He tells me what's coming up anyway and give me more of an opportunity to go look at things. But one of the things we talked about was with cottonwood trees. The trees that are causing the problems are not small trees. They're large trees that have been growing forever. They were probably there when the tree paths were put in. So we had a discussion about moving a path one way or the other when it's put in. The other thing is it's real easy to take out a small tree versus taking out a large tree. And most cottonwoods are never desirable over a pathway because they shed branches on hot days, and they are not a tree. They're a tree you want to look out over somewhere further away, not one that you want over the top of a pathway. So some planning, and we kind of had the same ideas, but just more of a planning thing. When things are put in, it's the time to deal with them, either move the path or move the tree. But anyway, so good things, or at least what I see happening. We need to keep doing this.
Thank you.
Kristen, do you know if we have a native tree list that's published with the city site or anything that we can at least educate ourselves with?
I thought that there was somewhere on planning. I was looking to see if Erica was still on the call. She may have hung up. That's something I can sure get for you. I thought that at one point, because they also deal with tree removals on private property in the planning department, that there was a published list of approved trees.
This has been years ago since I was on the planning commission, but I believe when I was on the commission, there was a list of trees. I think more specifically for street trees, but I'm not sure if that also included open space trees, but I do remember seeing something like that with the city of Sherwood.
Cool, thank you. Well, I will move to approve the tree removals as requested in the document. If anybody wants to second.
I'll second it.
Okay, that was John. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, you've approved the removal of the trees as documented in the request for this month. Let me jump back to the agenda here.
So I think we just have board vacancy update next.
Oh, yep. Yeah, and then Russell after that. So, yep, go ahead.
So Erica, Russell, absolutely feel free to chime in, but we conducted interviews, I guess it must have been about 2 weeks ago, for the vacancies on the Parks and Rec Board, and we have 4 people that are being recommended tomorrow evening at the City Council meeting. So in October, we anticipate having 4 new members on the Parks Board. The one thing that does mean is that this will officially be Sarah's last meeting, which I'm very sad to say. And Sarah, we've so much appreciated your time and dedication over the years. And I hope that you stay engaged as we wrap up this master plan process. I know that you have a lot of wonderful feedback. So we would love to have you continue to participate and help us through this process.
Well, thank you. It's been a hard decision to make, but I think in the midst of everything, just too many pans in the fire. But absolutely, if I can ever give feedback or if there's anything I can give insight to, I don't hesitate to reach out and I'll jump back in.
Thank you. We will miss you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. We've loved having you.
Question about
Sarah.
that. Thanks, Sarah. Question about that. Are all 4 of the new board members men?
They are.
So we will be a very male-heavy board. Were there any women
We
who?
will be a very male-heavy board. We only had men apply this go around.
Well, I was wondering. That's what I was going to ask.
Yes.
Well, if you need the female perspective, just holler.
Poor
You
Joy.
guys all have to get really loud, huh?
Yes, Joy's gonna go. Joy, go. Make sure her mic is always on.
Yeah.
Right. She gets 2 voices.
Yeah, I'll just comment too. I mean, yeah, we'll definitely miss Sarah. All 4 interviewees that we're bringing on board all seemed like great candidates, and we had a lot of excitement to be involved in the city, and so I'm excited to introduce them next month to the rest of you guys.
And just so everybody knows, we have also shared a draft plan of the Parks Master Plan with them as well, and invited them to listen to the meeting tonight. And then we'll also make sure that we're sending them links so that they can get up to speed on all of the good work that you all have been doing.
Great. Well, thank you, Kristen. If anybody doesn't have any other questions, we can pass the reins on to Russell with the council update for us.
What a meeting, an hour and a half. Wow, we should tell the new people it's always this long. Wouldn't necessarily be the truth, but hey.
We finally had some meat to sink our teeth into. That's
right. Yeah. Well,
don't scare them away, Russell.
What was that?
I said don't scare them away.
Yeah, that's right. So I would like to also say thank you to Sarah because it is even though it's only once a month, it's important work, and I think that as a community we rely on citizen input. We can't talk to everybody, and to get some people together which have an interest in parks or recreation and trails, to talk about that. I think it's great. And so I also really appreciate Sarah's, volunteer time that she spent, and, because you got to read the packets, you got to try to interpret what Jason is saying every month, all that stuff, it's great. And I certainly appreciate as well all of Sarah's work. So, and everybody that serves on the commission. And I think that, no women applied this time. 5 men. We could only pick 4. But they all seemed, like very strong candidates and very diverse. Didn't you think so, Eric and Chris? I thought they were very diverse, very, very interesting individuals. So I'm very excited about that. So let's see a couple of things. First, there is an approved tree list. It's on the planning tree removal page. At the very bottom is a PDF that is the approved list. John is correct. His memory is not failing yet. And there is that approved list. And that was, I think I was on the planning commission at the same time when we did that at some point. So it's.
Yeah, that's correct. You were.
Yeah. Let's see. Also, the question about, and I think it might have been John again. I also have a lot of comments and feedback that I'm going to send to Kristen about the Parks Master Plan, and some are very particular. A lot of, John mentioned some of the specific typos and whatnot. So I have a whole list of those, which I'll send over, which they'll catch. And then some other concepts. For example, how will Roy Rogers and what the county is doing to that side of the road, how will that affect citizens' access to that park? And I think and I was trying in my head to review that stretch of that drawing, and I couldn't bring it. I couldn't find it fast enough. But I think that's very important. And I think that that might be something that comes to the Parks Board so they can see, what is the county planning? How are they? And should the Parks Board say, well, we're not crazy about that interface, how that's not MIG's vision. Here's our opportunity to make a more inviting entrance to the park. More inviting doesn't mean 8-foot wall of cement or whatever the county is planning. Don't want to put words in their mouth, but I think that's a very good catch. And that is why the Parks Board is there. I agree with the comment about trails. I looked at it quickly in the transportation plan. It's very detailed. It's like a Bob Galati masterpiece. I'm sure that's where that came from. And I agree that, that mode of transportation is a mode of transportation in the city. But I think the Parks Board and the TSP, at least that element, should be more integrated. And I think the Parks Master Plan should reference that in more detail in some way, so that someone sitting down, looking at the Parks Master Plan realizes, as Joy pointed out, that one of the biggest wants and asks in the survey was more trails, more connected trails. We need to show them in the plan. We have a plan to connect our trails. That is, we heard you and we agree. And we can't just say, oh, look at the TSP. Well, that's too weak for me. So we'll figure something out. But I completely agree that we need to incorporate that. Let's see where, other than that, the other things that I thought about, and I'll talk to maybe Kristen more. Some of these are issues, that the city council, the mayor, the city manager are dealing with, our current situation with the school district, Bless their hearts, got a chance to tour the new high school. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. They did a fabulous job. I don't know how the first day of school went. I'm sure it went well. I'm sure people were safe. Big job, big burden on their shoulders. I totally get that. At the same time, we were hoping maybe to come to some sort of an agreement with the district on managing those properties. I don't think we're there yet. I talked to Joe this afternoon, and I don't know. He doesn't know, but we're still talking about it. But I think my point here is that that's probably going to be decided soon. And because of that, I think whatever that current situation is should be referenced accurately in the Parks Master Plan, because that will change some content in there. And I think maybe it's not a redo, obviously. I don't want Lauren to have a heart attack, but it might be like a rethink, like maybe a few people, staff, Lauren, whomever, MIG, get in the room and just have a conversation about what does that mean in terms of our plan, and where do we go from here? Does that change goals? Does that change? Anyway, I think that's very valid, because that is an issue that's going on right now. We shouldn't whitewash it. We shouldn't ignore it. We should address it. It should seem in the master plan that, okay, that's reality now. Well, okay, we're going to do this in response to that, whatever that might be. So that's my 2 cents on the master plan. Wait, I think I had one more. Let's see. I have John mentioned that map, or maybe it was Eric who mentioned. Oh, it was Eric who mentioned that map. There are some. Lauren's still on the call, is she? There are some fundamental issues with that map. I'm telling you right now, because it took me a while. I mean, I was looking at the legend at the bottom of the map, which doesn't really match up with the colors in the map. And then I saw the big tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and I thought, oh, those colors are the ones that are on the map. There's kind of something going on there. So I've written that down in my notes, and I'll send that off to Kristen. I think they just need to relook at that. I also thought some of the maps were, and I know we have a sort of a Xerox printed copy of the master plan. It's not, maybe, I don't know, it's probably not as good quality as the final plan, but I found some of the maps really hard to read. The legend's too small. It's grainy. I just feel like if we're gonna, whatever the final product is, needs to be of a better quality so it's readable by the public. So, and I'll send those concerns over to Kristen and
so Russell, I can speak to the printing of that, because it was printed at the Center for the Arts. Our printer doesn't print colors completely accurately.
Okay, there we go.
But the resolutions should be pretty spot on. So if you see things that are blurry or something like that, then definitely make notes of those.
Yeah, what I might do is if I might have you guys used an original. Is that the original PDF that we have?
Yes.
That's the original. All right, I'll take a peek at it. Again, but I just think that we should really look at that, because if I would hate to have us print, like 25 copies of that and realize that map is not readable.
Right.
So,
Russell, are you wanting to look at an electronic version? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so that one, you don't have that. That's just for the attachments and appendices. That's the link we sent you. It was too big, but we can put it on a thumb drive for you.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. And I'll just stop by and pick it up. I'll just use my badge to sneak in there like I did last night, and I'll just go grab it. That would be great. I would just like to see it, because I just think it's such an important map that it needs to be crystal clear what is what.
Right.
I just found it kind of hard to kind of look at. So,
okay.
And those other items, Kristen, I'll email you my list, and maybe tomorrow we can chat about some of the others, but I've kind of addressed most of them. So let's see, from a council point of view, good job, Parks Board. Good job, MIG. Let's see, the city closed at noon. I think it was noon on Friday. We're back open today. Some of the other cities in the area stayed closed, but Joe decided, honestly, it's either smoky at work or it's smoky at home. So it's smoky in the grocery store, or it's smoky at wherever you are. It's smoky. I mean, I don't know where you are where it's not smoky. Don't tell anybody, because we're all going to want to go there. it is what it is. So, and so I think, but some city staff still, continued to work from home. It wasn't like anybody was forced to come in, or I don't know how that went. Anyway, so the city is open. The city is open. FYI, the tours of the school district properties, the reallocated schools that all moved around, that was going to be Saturday, but because of the air quality, they canceled it. So the school district's redoing that. So that'll be coming up. Congratulations to Chief Growth. He was elected chair of the Oregon Accreditation Alliance. He'll be that for a year. There's 20 people on the board, including like all the chiefs of police from the state of Oregon and the sheriffs and the 9/11 directors. So that's great. It's not the first time he's been the president of the statewide organization for law enforcement, but that's awesome. So I plan to congratulate him when I talk to him tomorrow. Kristen, the fall art walk has been rescheduled. Kelsey's probably on top of that. I don't think we have a date yet, but to a date in the future. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, we're waiting to see when the air quality clears before we have a new date. We didn't want to reschedule and then need to reschedule the reschedule.
Right. Kelsey, can you guys just take care of that air quality, please? I just really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Also, the boardwalk, you might know this, Kristen, the boardwalk at Stella Olson, is the tree off of it yet? Is it still on it? Do you know where we are on that?
I do not know where we are on that, but I'd be happy to check and let you.
It's not a big deal, but in case the rest of you didn't notice, I think it was Craig who sent that picture of a pretty good sized tree, fell over onto the boardwalk at Stella Olson. So it's closed. And that'll just be, hopefully it was a rotting section of the boardwalk. So we'll just replace that section. But
anyway. Public Works was very busy last week trying to clean up everything from the windstorm. And then, of course, have also been hit and restricted in how much we can have people out working due to the air quality now. So I'm not sure if they were able to address that yet.
Oh, yeah. No, totally not complaining. I completely trust it'll be taken care of. Just FYI. Also, playgrounds opened over the weekend. Yay! And I honestly, I'm not telling you all. You guys will appreciate this. I got this question. Where was I? I was in the grocery store and someone said, "Hey, the playgrounds are open." I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Is the city going to be there to wipe down surfaces after the children play?" I'm like, "No, bring your own wipes." I don't know what the plan is, but I don't know what the long-term plan is. But no, citizens, please bring your own wipes and, use your own judgment when you have your kids playing on all of that equipment, like you would if there wasn't a virus. Just be careful and, exercise whatever your judgment is. But the city is not going to be, Kristen, you're not going to be standing there handing out wipes. Is that correct?
No, unfortunately. Not standing there spraying everything down after each use. I will also mention that the restrooms are open as well. They are unlocked. We just did that on Friday. Of course, the air has been horrible since then, so hopefully nobody's out actually using the playground or the restrooms. But one of the things that we are required to do is on the restrooms, we do have to put a sign up that says these cannot be cleaned twice a day. And so just to notify people, we're not able to do that or to staff it. So no, we can't staff playgrounds either. And clean them constantly. But that was one of our biggest concerns, is getting things open and making sure that it's as safe as possible. And we will also, if I can, not to jump in on your time, but in the same area, we will also be opening fields back up. That language was changed as well when the governor updated things a week and a half ago or so. So we will be able to open up Snyder Park. Now, as Russell mentioned, we're not scheduling any of the other fields right now. So the only field that the city has to schedule is Snyder Park baseball field and Snyder Park soccer field. And there's still only certain allowed activities that can occur on those fields. And it's going to be up to individuals to act responsibly and not be having activities that they're not supposed to do. But if people are interested in scheduling field time, they are to contact Lance and he'll be coordinating all of that. But once again, that's been delayed due to the air, but at least we're going to be able to start taking reservations and get people outdoors once the air clears.
Oh yeah, we'll all be outside. All of us will be outside.
Yes.
All right, I think that's it. So we meet tomorrow night. We have all those appointments on our agenda tomorrow. We have 4 to the Parks Board, 3 to Cultural Arts, and it seems like we have 4 to Cultural Arts, 4 to the Parks Board.
Jeez.
Maybe that's it tomorrow night, right? 5. Oh my gosh, there's so many people being appointed tomorrow night. Yeah, that I think you're right. And I think that's it. It's just kind of a working thing. No special work sessions tomorrow night. Should be pretty quick. So that's it. Thank you, Eric.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Russell.
Thank you, Russell.
Yeah.
So,
thanks, John.
for other, Stephen, you have a hand up.
Yeah, just a couple comments. Missed a few meetings in a row there due to family things or being out of town. But I did manage to spend a considerable amount of time on a couple different days at both Hood Rivers skate park and their disc golf course, which is directly across the street. And I just stumbled upon them, and if you've never been there, I would recommend anybody go there and spend a bit of time. There were all ages and all types of wheeled things being used, and you could tell it got a lot of use. And the disc golf course was a lot less used. It was a pretty darn hot day, and there were a couple people there that I think by the time they got done, they wish they hadn't. And then, but I also have probably for Russell or Kristen, question. So the school district agreement that is in question at the moment is the one that deals with scheduling and use of fields. Doesn't have anything to do with the city, or does it affect the agreement that the city has that they are maintaining all those facilities? So I really know nothing about any of what's going on. So another minute's worth of explanation would be helpful for me.
You want me to talk, Kristen?
Go ahead.
So, yeah, it's all together. It's all part of the IGA. So at least the most recent correspondence from the district is they would like to retain scheduling of all of their properties, their fields, indoor gyms, everything. And if that is the case, then the city is at the moment trying to figure out, okay, then we're trying to figure out what to do with the maintenance agreement. So that there's a letter that City Manager Joe Gall is drafting, which will go back to the district. They're officially corresponding with each other. It appears to me, in my own personal opinion, the district is pretty adamant about moving forward in this particular plan. My concern as a citizen in city of Sherwood is moving here 23 years ago. The fields were not really in great shape when I first got here. And then over time, it was probably only like 4 or 5 years, they got much better. And if you've been here in the last 20 years, they're amazing. I mean, if you go to some of the other jurisdictions, I'm not going to put anybody else down, Tiger, Beaverton, anybody else. We have great fields. I mean, honestly, they're amazing. And we hear that from the thousands of people that use those fields every year, the sports leagues of all different kinds of sports. Sherwood has a lot of fields. We have, it's a family-friendly place. People love to, now we have a hotel, for heaven's sakes, and people love to have baseball tournaments here. So my concern as a citizen is I hope that all of that stays smoothly accessible. I know it's the school district's property, but it is kind of quasi-public property. And I just hope that they continue to allow, the leagues to use that, and, that Sherwood is still a great place to come and, have ball games and ball, tournaments. And yeah, so it is all one big package, Steve. And at the moment, the city is trying to decide, we're communicating with the district, and depending on what their final answer is, that will determine. And then Kristen will bring that information to the next meeting. So.
All right. Yeah. I just, having been here forever, also actually longer than forever. Yeah, I think that the fields at Hopkins were very similar when my children played there. Were very similar to when I went to school there, which was even longer ago. And they were in poor shape. And when you went to practice, you had to take your tools with you so you could work on the fields. And
that was, we all did that.
Yeah.
He's not kidding. We all took like rakes and stuff. We
Rakes and shovels in your wheelbarrow every week when you went to practice. Yes.
That's exactly right.
And yeah, I only see advantage to the school district in all this. I don't see if the agreement goes away, the current agreement is all to the school district's advantage, and if they can't see that or refuse to see that, I guess I'll be able to deal with that fairly easily. But I as Russell said, I don't think that's good for the community as a whole, because it's working pretty darn good right now, I think.
I do know that their hope, their aspiration is that they will continue to provide the same level of service to the leagues and teams, that we currently have. So they're not, I'm not trying to slight the district and what they're trying to do, because I think absolutely that's what their hope, their aspiration is. So, and that's mine as well. So that's all I'm trying to say.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else have anything else for the last chance? Other category?
Not me.
Okay. Well, yeah, if anybody has any questions or any other updates with the Parks Master Plan, feel free to email those to Kristen this month. But with that in mind, we will call this meeting adjourned. So our next meeting is October, what was it, 5th? October 5th, first Monday. So thank you all so much for your time today. This was a longer meeting than we've had in the last few months, but a lot more to kind of get through and dig into with that master plan. So
thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, Aaron.